Hello there. We're going to talk about section 9.7. This will be the last section from this chapter before our test. And I'm calling this lines and angles. We have 4 specific types of lines that I want to talk about. Show you how to name them and show you how to do a little bit of algebra with them. So you can write this on your notes sheet that I had given you at the beginning of the week, or you can write it in your notebook. Whatever you're comfortable with is fine. I'm not picky about that. I gave you the worksheet so that you at least know all the words that you're responsible for the week. Okay, so perpendicular lines, they intersect at a right angle. Okay, they intersect at a right angle. So there's a lot of math that we can do with perpendicular lines, okay? So I'm going to show you a couple different ways to label perpendicular, okay? So say I have line AB, and then here is my symbol for perpendicular. It's a very long word, and so if you learn that symbol, it'll save you the trouble from having to write out that word. It's an upside down capital T. And then I'm going to say line AB is perpendicular to ray CD. Okay, so that's going to be my label. Now I want you to draw that. So they'll call this a label. Okay, next I want you to draw that. Okay, so to draw that, we need to draw a line. We need a dot. Those are dots. Those are not tick marks. I can't do a dot very well with my stylus. That's line AB, and then I'll make ray CD. Now I didn't tell you where they intersect, so it doesn't matter where they meet. Oops, I need to do a dot at the end. Okay, so that would be ray C and D. Okay, all right, so the last thing we need is always, when you are talking about perpendicular or right angles, you need the little box there that shows it's a right angle. Okay, so this is, the first thing is label. The second thing is draw. Okay, now the third thing is, what if I want to actually, solve some math here? So what if I put in this picture that here is 5x, okay, and I want to solve for x. Well, here would be, we can call this an example. Okay, here's some algebra, some solving. Okay, so just another piece of info, we're going to also call the measure of angle. Oops, I need to have one more. I'm going to call where they meet F. Okay, that's where they meet. So the measure of angle AFD equals 5x, right? But I also know, because there is a right angle symbol there, I also know that the measure of angle AFD is equal to 90 degrees. Therefore, I can make an equation, 5x equals 90. And I can divide both sides by 5, and 1 with 4 left over, 18. So x equals 18. All right, so there's all the different types of things that I can do with perpendicular lines. I can define it. Perpendicular lines intersect at a right angle. Let me highlight that. Okay, so here's the first thing. They intersect at a right angle. There's my definition. The second thing is I need to know how to label 2 lines that might be perpendicular. Third thing is I need to be able to draw those out and label the drawings properly. And then the last piece is doing an example. All right, let's do the next word. Segment bisector. Segment bisector. Okay, a segment bisector is a segment line or array that cuts a segment into 2 equal parts. So sorry, long definition. Okay, segment bisector. Okay, so I'm just going to draw this. I'm going to draw a segment first. Okay, so I'm actually going to draw this one first before I tell you the label. Okay, and we'll call this A and B. So there's a segment. And then I'm going to draw a ray, or no, I'll draw a line. We'll make a line, and then where I should use the highlighter, where that meets, we'll call that M is the middle, and then my line we'll call X and Y. Okay. All right, so there is my drawing. Next, I want to show you my label. That would be, I'm going to say X, Y, line XY is the bisector of segment AB. So here the line XY is doing the cutting. You can imagine that that's a knife. It's just cutting AB and splitting it in half into 2 equal parts. And the last thing I would need to do is I need to put tick marks. So whenever I cut something into 2 equal parts, I now need tick marks that show that those 2 parts are the same. Okay? So I can actually label this again now. So here's my first label. XY is the bisector of AB. The second thing I can number those, that'll be easier. Number 1, number 2. The second thing I can do is I can say that AM is congruent to MB. Those are both segments, so they get a segment on top. And we have an equal sign and we have a congruent sign. Equal sign is for when I'm dealing with numbers, and the congruent symbol is for when I'm dealing with shapes or lines. So AM is congruent or equal to MB. All right. So I can do a quick example. If AM, segment AM equals 10, what is AB? What is AB? Well, I'm going to label my picture with that number. AM is 10, okay? And it has tick marks, so that means MB must also be 10. Therefore, the whole thing, AB, should be 10 plus 10, which is 20. We're going to do some examples in class together about that. All right, the next 2 are a little bit trickier. So next we have a perpendicular bisector. Excuse me. And a perpendicular bisector, I want you to underline the word perpendicular, and we're going to write 90 degrees. And then underline the word bisector, and you're going to write cuts in 2 equal parts. So I'm giving you a very shortened definition of a perpendicular bisector. Okay? Oh, there was something I forgot when I went up here. Okay, so I apologize. Back on number 9 for segment bisector, I do want you to write the word midpoint here. So in this picture that we did, the midpoint is location of exact middle. So the location of the exact middle, that point that cuts it into 2 equal parts, is called the midpoint. And in this example, M was the midpoint. And often M stands for midpoint. Okay, so I apologize. So now when we have a perpendicular bisector, we're also going to have a midpoint. All right, so let's draw one first. To have a perpendicular bisector, you do have to start with a segment. Come on. And let's call it CD. Okay. Now, here is the bisector. It is the knife that is cutting this CD into 2 equal parts, and we'll call that, excuse me, P and Q. Okay, we'll put a dot in the middle, and that's going to be M for midpoint. And then we're also going to include the right angle symbol, and there we have a perpendicular bisector. So in order to label a perpendicular bisector, you need that little square thingy. Okay, don't forget to put that. And then you need tick marks on the segment. So you need both of those things to label a perpendicular bisector. So it's basically combining numbers 8 and number 9, perpendicular lines and a bisector. Okay? And we can do some examples with that, but I'm going to move on from now. Right now, I want you to know what a bisector does and how to label it properly. You need this little square and you need the tick marks, or you do not have it labeled properly. Oops. Okay, last one is angle bisector. All right, this one can be tricky because we're dealing with angles, and drawing angles can be tricky, but it's the same idea. It is a ray, and it cuts an angle into 2 equal parts. Okay, so, excuse me, draw my angle. Let's call it A, B, and C. Okay, and now I'm going to draw a ray in the center of that angle. See, it's a ray because it has an endpoint. Okay, and we'll call that X. Okay, and the thing that you need when you are bisecting something is you always need tick marks that are going to show what 2 things are now equal, and that's how you do tick marks on an angle. So now we're going to write 2 conclusions, and then we'll be done. So number 1, we are going to write that ray BX is the bisector of, what angle is it bisecting? It is bisecting A, B, C, that angle. A, B, oops, hold on. Take that away. Okay, angle A, B, and C. All right, and number 2, when you have a bisector, an angle bisector, or any bisector, you know what you have is you have a congruent statement now. You have 2 things that are now congruent to each other. And when you have 2 things congruent to each other, you can make an equation, and then you can do some algebra to solve that equation. So what 2 angles are now equal to each other? Can you name them? You would have angle ABX is now congruent to angle XB. Hold on, let me put my angle symbol in. Angle XBC. Let me show you just with the highlighter. So now I have ABX is equal to XBC. Okay, and this ray, oh, I like the highlighter, this is fun. This ray right here cuts angle ABC into 2 equal parts. Okay, so that was a lot of information. Come ready to work tomorrow. Okay, have a great day. Bye.